Welcome to Knife Thoughts. This video, as you can probably tell, is going to be an unboxing of a knife from RoseCraft blades. So I'm pretty excited about this one because it is a model that I think looks really cool from RoseCraft blades. I'm going to be using this knife, which is the briar patch jack from RoseCraft, to open it. And I do have a review on this knife that went up recently. A nice cigar pattern. And so I will use the lamb foot blade here to open this. I'm actually going to take the sticker off, open it somewhat off camera, take out the packing slip, and bring it back into frame. So here is a sticker, RoseCraft blade sticker. I think they do a good job of their kind of logo and branding. And got a Jolly Rancher in there. Doesn't hurt. My brother always really liked Jolly Ranchers, so I had them growing up, but don't really have them or any candy too much now, so it's definitely appreciated. You can see that this one was for Knife Thoughts. And this, as you can see, is the Nolichucky jack. And I have to say, I am not 100% sure that I'm pronouncing that correctly. I'll definitely check out some other videos and see what the consensus is on the pronunciation, but it looks like Nolichucky, or maybe Nolichucky jack to me. So this is a knife that Andy Armstrong, who designed it and is behind RoseCraft blades, said is inspired by an old IXL pattern. I love that they are taking inspiration from old knives, from vintage knives, from, knives from old catalogs and things like that. And so I was excited to see that. It's kind of an interesting, what I'd call a curved jack. So first of all, really nice looking. They're doing good stuff with the covers on their knives. Really interesting, somewhat different, kind of a tannish, greenish, brownish bone with lots of speckling. So I hope that that's coming through well in the video there, because it's got a lot of character to it, a lot of speckling of darker spots within the kind of greater back color of that olive green, tan, grayish look. So I really like that. I think it's cool that they are doing, natural handle materials and in some different colors than, you might be used to seeing from Case or GEC. Now, my first impression of this is that this is really nicely put together. You can see that there's no gaps on the back spring. And looking closely here, I don't see any gaps between the bolster and the covers either. Also don't see any gaps around the shield. Let's see, very nicely centered. I would say perfectly centered. Also sits nicely within the frame, so no proud tip. You can see that this has a long pull, so let's try that out. Very nicely done. Sometimes some modern traditional pocket knives, if that's maybe a little bit of a oxymoron, but some modern traditional knives, the long pulls sometimes are a little bit hard to get a purchase on. It doesn't seem like that's the case here. And you can see, again, this is what I would call a curved jack. It's not a straight handled jack. It does have a curve to it, but it's just kind of a regular jack with a curve. And it has this really cool spear point blade. Now, this is somewhere between a spear point and a drop point, but because it has this curve, this kind of a more abrupt curve towards the tip, I would call it a spear point. You can see it has the sticker here. On my first video on a RoseCraft blades knife, I talked about how I wouldn't prefer to have that sticker. I'd prefer to have it say China. A lot of people really disagreed with that. And it is true that I took the sticker off of the Beaver Creek Barlow. That's the one that I had made that video on, and it made like a mark. I think probably, you can see how there's that residue. I think if you took some, rubbing alcohol or something, that would come off pretty easily. It did come off on the briar patch jack. Now, I will say, You know, I've gotten that off, and you can see there is a little bit of a mark. I don't think that I'm wrong that it leaves a little bit of a mark, but it's one of those things where I think most people seem to prefer the sticker over having it stamped China. So, you know, that is what it is. That is what it is. And there is Andy Armstrong's kind of maker's mark. You can see that this is D2 steel. I really like D2. I actually was thinking about that a lot yesterday. I was carrying the Briar Patch Jack yesterday along with a Sen cut knife. I think I have it right here. That is also D2 steel. You know, and I was thinking, you know, D2 is great. You know, D2 has been around a long time. I think people know how to heat treat D2 really well. I think that it's plenty stainless for me, and particularly on a traditional knife like this, it's something where you get that feel of it being traditional that people get from carbon steel, because technically D2 is a carbon steel, but really you get the functionality of a stainless steel because it's stainless enough that you really don't have to worry about it rusting too much. At least I don't in my uses. I mean, that Sen cut I actually had with me in a sauna yesterday, and it's, you know, completely fine. I actually didn't even clean it off. Oh, don't cut your hand in the video there. But I didn't even clean it off afterwards, and you can see it's fine, you know. So I think D2 is a great choice, particularly on a traditional knife like this. And I've also just been really impressed with the quality of these RoseCraft blades knives. They, you know, whoever is making these are, you know, made in China, obviously, as the sticker, you know, shows. Whoever is making these is doing a really, really great job, especially for the price range. You know, this is considerably more expensive than most Rough Rider knives, not really than the Rough Rider Reserve knives, but it's less expensive than, you know, something like Austin's exclusives from QSP, which, you know, have higher end materials, and certainly than Jack Wolf knives, but those have higher materials and a finer, you know, construction, fit, and finish. But they are certainly made well, and I think really well for the price range. These, you know, range from like $60 to $75, something like that. I actually didn't check. Well, I did look, and I'm forgetting how much this one's going to end up being. But I know the Briar Patch was about $70, and being that it's a two-blade, you'd think that this would be, you know, around the same range. So I think that they're really, really nicely made for that price range. Let's look at the action here. So first of all, is there any blade play? No. Nice and solid feeling. Very nice. So I would call this a little bit of a stronger pull than the Briar Patch. 6 or maybe even 7, which I think makes sense on a larger single-bladed knife like this. This feels like a knife that you can definitely, you know, put to use. So a stronger pull, I do like that, and it's easy to open with that long pull. I think they did a good job of that. I'll bet that you can pinch this too. I've been just kind of having that feeling. I actually don't know that you can. I mean, you might be able to. Honestly, I injured my finger doing jiu-jitsu yesterday, so don't know that I can pinch as well as normal. But it because the blade is polished, it does feel a little slippery. I think I would generally, you know, use that long pull. So that's something that I'll play with as I carry and use this knife, because I do think I will. This seems like a really nice knife. It feels great in the hand. You know, a curved, you know, jack handle like this is gonna feel good in the hand. You can certainly get a full grip on it. I've got relatively wide fingers, and you can see that I can easily get a full 4-finger grip on it. The edge. So let's talk about that. The edge of traditional knives is something that most American companies or manufacturers, I should say, RoseCraft Blades is an American company, but they're manufactured overseas. Most American manufacturers of traditional pocket knives just don't do a good job of the edges. GEC doesn't really do a good job of the edges. You know, I've said it in a lot of videos, and I don't mind saying it. Case doesn't do a good job of the edges. I just made a video about that. Well, about a knife, and talked about that. And, you know, I don't have a lot of Bear & Son knives, but their edges haven't been great in my experience. Cooper cutlery edges, I haven't had a recent Cooper cutlery knife, but the ones I've had have not had great edges. So it's kind of like a plague of on American-made traditional pocket knives. And that's not the case for these knives made overseas, including the Italian and even French knives that I've had, but especially the Italian, and certainly these Chinese-made knives have nice edges. This edge looks nice and even. I don't know how well it'll do this because this is kind of wrinkled up wax type paper, but let's see if it cuts this. Yep, so it cuts it. It is a very light paper. I don't think that's the right direction to cut it, but you can see it definitely cuts. And so, you know, I don't know why American manufacturers can't get that down. It's kind of frustrating because the edge is like the part of the knife that works, you know, that does the cutting. But these Chinese manufacturers seem to do a really great job of it. And this looks and feels like a nice edge. And, you know, that's another thing, because these have blade stop pins. You're not going to have blade wrap, which is another thing that's common on American-made traditional knives. So, you know, you're going to have a usable knife right out of the box. Whereas, you know, you might, boy, I'm slipping off in that direction. Seems like you should open it like that. It's interesting. I guess maybe just the angle. There we go. But, you know, with these knives, you're going to be able to use it right out of the box. You're not going to have to reprofile the edge, at least in my experience. So I'm excited about this one. I think that it's a really cool looking knife. This is one that I actually said to Andy, you know, I thought looked especially interesting to me. So I'm looking forward to putting this in my pocket, putting it to use. And if you're interested in this knife, you know, leave a comment. Tell me what you're interested in hearing about this knife, if there's anything I should talk about in my full review. And make sure you are subscribed so you know when I post that full review. Click the bell and select all so you know when it goes up. Check out my website, knifethoughts.com, where I post articles on knives like this and knife-related topics. And last but not least, as always, don't forget to go out and do good.